Hey everyone, welcome to episode 5 of Sell Like a Marketer. I'm Sarah Tahir and this is Patrick Hogan. We're so happy to have you today. Before we get started, Patrick, can you talk to us a bit about your latest project? You were just discussing it,
Oh
and I think we
yeah.
need to share it with our audience.
Unfortunately, I get all excited about this. Is a project I'm working on it's to teach salespeople how to use AI in their daily practices, and it's for Microsoft. They've got thousands of reps, like 10,000 reps, but there's a lot of cadre of people that get on a call quickly and have to use AI to prepare for that. So yeah, Sarah, if you're fine with it, I said to Sarah earlier, if you don't mind, do you mind if I practice a little bit with this presentation? Because it is what we promised in today's call is to how do you
Yeah, I think it's a good idea actually, for others to see like the type of that type of projects and that type of work. And I mean, AI is all the hype right now, and definitely something I personally am interested in, and I'm sure there's a lot I can learn and others as well. So yeah, go ahead if you want to share your screen.
Okay, perfect. Give me 2 seconds here. I'm gonna bring up my PowerPoint here, and if I share, oh, I have a request too. Hang on. Oop, I have to say okay. Oh, I have to sharing request.
And yep, you're good to go. Try again if you want to click again.
Okay, perfect. Oop, hang on here. Okay, perfect. Here we go. Share. Can you see that? Is it full screen?
Yep, yep, daily AI. Okay.
Yeah, pretty essential tool. So again, I'm all about practical use of AI, and that's what we're talking about. Now, first, when I'm talking to salespeople, I do say, there's a saying in our business that AI will not replace salespeople because there's always that human contact, but a salesperson using AI will replace you as a salesperson if you don't keep up or even get ahead of the wave in the daily use of AI to do. So since then, I've kind of updated that cute little saying about being replaced. Is right now AI will replace probably 20% to 30% of salespeople. It's not just one, two. So knowing how to use AI on a daily basis for salespeople is a career must, it's table stakes. So I'll go through really quick. This is a presentation, this is some training I'm putting together for Microsoft. Uh, first,
I like how you mentioned because everyone is worried about their job, right?
yeah,
And human contact is always required in sales. I think this is and I think in marketing as well, when in specific areas.
yeah.
Um, and it's good to remind ourselves that not everything can be automated, or people would like to have automated. Like you'd like to talk to people sometimes.
Mhm.
So um, the way to keep your job is to try to elevate your skill set and improve yourself and learn things like this. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And make better connections with people. I do say, as always, in my sales philosophy, is it comes back to the human. Right. And I use a lot of psychology in my sales in a good way because not understanding how humans work and brain and psychology is like being an F1 Formula race car driver not knowing how an engine works. You kind of you have to do that. So let's I'm going to jump into real quick because then we want to leave lots of time for questions and you've got some great questions as well. So that's a little bit about me. In the lower left is my a QR code to my LinkedIn. If you want to just send me a LinkedIn invite after, that's my profile. But here we go. In sales, a wise mentor of mine, Sarah once said, "Look, kid, there's only 4 ways in sales you can increase your sales, increase your number, and that's first value." Bringing value to everything you do, right? So that's showing up prepared for calls. Volume, do more deals, right? Find a way to be more efficient, do more deals. Velocity, each deal you do them faster, be prepared, have a quote system ready to go, things like that. And then victory, which is win more often. So as a salesperson, everything you should do should be focused on one or more of these 4 things, because it's the only way to increase your sales. All right. So I'm going to talk about today a little bit how you use AI to do that. Now there's a challenge. Most people focus on just 4, victory, right? They already win sales, they win rates and closing rates and stuff. They focus on that too. The top people I work with also work on velocity. Can they quote quicker? Can they got a template for their proposals? Can they do business faster to be more efficient? And then through marketing. do more of those deals, which is kind of fun. Unfortunately, sometimes people forget about, by the time they get the most important one, I think, which is value. So people right now are working from the bottom up, too. So what I'm going to talk about today is how to use AI to bring value to the deal. All right. Does that make sense so far, Sarah? All good?
Yep. And I
Oh.
like that you mentioned this because I have actually this discussion like every now and then with other SEOs when we're talking about clients and how to win clients. And it's all about the closing rate. Like, hey, how to close the deal. But we need to start from the top, as you mentioned, like how to provide value, right?
Yeah, yeah, there's a ton of focus on metrics and KPIs right now. This is more moving back up towards what's important and what AI really can't replace is,
It's a change in mindset. Like, instead of asking how I close this deal, we should start asking first, what value am I providing, or am I providing enough value? Right. This
yeah,
is
yeah.
yeah. I like this. Yeah.
You're picking up when I'm laying down. All
I'm a good
right.
student. See, this
Yeah,
is
there
my
you
fifth session,
go.
and I'm like learning a lot.
All right. Awesome. And I should also apologize. Just coming down off a cold, so if I'm a bit raspy, kind of thing, you have to let me go on that. So,
Look, I also have a cold, and I'm even using the saline thing. It's a mess over here.
all right. So, I promised to go through this quickly. What I say, I use AI to support in the sales cycle, moments that matter, important things. And to me, it's always when there's a human involved. So one of the ones we've done another call on is discovery calls. So we're going to talk a little bit today how you improve discovery calls with AI, right? Which is a favorite of mine. Boosting client engagement. You got clients. How do you grow your business inside of a client? How do you expand that? How do you just our important one? I'm in the sales side. You are on the marketing side. How do you strengthen that sales marketing alignment? So those are kind of the objectives I'm going to teach in this course that we're looking to put on too. So good for objectives today. All right. So I'm going to do in this course. I will go more into it and show it, but I'll talk about it today because we're for expediency of time here too. So the first thing I would say is you've got a new client or a prospect in front of you, right? Even if it's an old client, an old prospect, you can expand your vision to. But AI powered research is important. So gathering insights and trends, you should know as much or more about their industry than they do. If you really had to be frank about it. So going to AI and saying, okay, I'm meeting with a manufacturing COO, operating officer, right? What are asking AI, what are the latest manufacturing developments, going on in the industry in general? There may be a huge move in my wife's industry, which is packaging. There's a move towards laser etching versus labels. So it's a huge cost saving. It's faster, it's cleaner, things like that. What are the latest insights in that industry? Any new product launches, particularly for the company you're about to meet? You should know a little bit. Hey, congratulations on the new launch of your new X9000, right? That sort of stuff. Market challenges. What you can ask AI. What are the challenges facing this company and this industry, right? It's great that way. So for you, this is background. You don't try and blurt this out on the sales call or anything, but it sets you up for a real good AI. So that's the first use, if you will, daily. Right? In the course, what I'll do is I show some examples of this. So second is customized conversation starters, and we just talked about that a second ago. Is that how do you when you're on the discovery call, how do you run that call? The first thing, one of the questions you've asked is what to do and what not to do. First thing is salespeople get excited and they've got all this knowledge and they're required about the business and the person and all that stuff, and they're anxious to blurt it out. And no, really you want to just get on the call, and your opening questions are, first is what's on your mind. You've joined this call, give them. But quite after that, you can say, look, I understand in the industry you have these challenges. Do you have these, and what are you doing about them? Especially there's the challenges that you've highlighted that you as a marketer, as a salesperson, can help with. So in manufacturing, for example, I would say to them, what are you doing about labeling? I know it's expensive, labels stick. It's sometimes a manufacturing nightmare. What are you doing about laser etching, which could be faster? So I'll stop for any questions, Sarah. You good?
Actually, I have a comment on the previous slide. It's a
Sure.
small thing, but I liked it because this is for Microsoft. You're mentioning ChatGPT and Copilot, and not Google products, for example, right? It's being even context aware of who you're talking to. Like I would have not noticed this, and I've gone to Microsoft and told them, "Hey, why don't you use this or that?" Google's like, "Okay, that's a smart move." Yeah.
Yeah, I'm keeping in mind my target audience, if you will, too. I myself use a whole range of AI to do what I'm talking about here today. But again, keeping my target audience in mind. Yeah. And by the way, I'm a huge Copilot ChatGPT user. You know, it's exceptional tools.
Yes, and that's a lot of everyone loves ChatGPT, of course, and but I like what that you avoided, like, or was intentional when you mentioned them, not just, like, and it's relevant to your audience. And yeah, that's part of what we were talking about before, like always come prepared and know your audience and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a small thing,
Yeah.
but I had to comment on this.
Thank you. Yeah, it's true. The target audience is Microsoft salespeople. So those are the primary tools available to them. So excellent. And it's just almost blurred lines between what tools are out there. So it's how you use them, right? So and that's what we talk about is, like, what do the prompts look like? Where do you send it for research, things like that, right? So we talk about that more in detail in the course, how to build a prompt, where to get the knowledge, and then what's the outcome look like? How is it usable by me, right? So again, thanks. Yeah, good question. Customized conversation starters. And that's where you sort of, as a salesperson, my first on a call is always, what's on your mind? You join the call. What do you want to talk about? So you don't get caught up in all this knowledge too. But shortly after that, after you've understood the client's needs and you've, got to the what, how, why that we talk about in previous calls, then that's where you can come in, or your team can come in, because it's not just me doing this. I sometimes challenge my sales engineers, given their knowledge. You ask the right question. You tell me, you summarize this person's challenges, if you will, right, for the call. So fantastic tool that way. But this is on a broader scope. Customized conversation starters around like recent client initiatives or anything you know that's going on, in their company. Especially that you can align yourselves in. So I give a little example here. Contuso, which is Microsoft's internal kind of demo company. It's a fictional company they use in all their stuff. They've announced new sustainability goals, and they said, how do your tech support that? And what they're doing here is they're saying, if you move out of your in-house computer servers to the cloud, it's a lot more sustainable.
I like
So
this, and because now for me, if I meet a client, one of the things I can start with is say something, hey, with all the AI changes to search, for example, I'm just trying to give an example that's for SEOs. Hey, with all the AI search changes, how is your marketing strategy adapting to this, right? Or
yeah,
and the LLMs are growing. The use of LLMs is growing over time. How are you planning to future proof your strategy and make sure you're mentioned there? Like maybe that's something, as you said,
perfect.
it's a trend,
Relevant.
or yeah.
It's relevant, right? And you, Sarah, for example, you're a great example of this. You're an SEO expert, right? Too, and you happen to be a human too. People, and that's going to be the difference. People will still want to talk to humans, but well-informed humans, and the humans that bring value. You would talk about, because I'm very curious. I want to jump on a call after you to talk about that. What is happening with SEO, and because I go more and more now to obviously to my AI assistants.
I think you said something I really like. It's a aha moment for me. I'm really sorry if this sounds basic, but for me, it's, you said people want to talk to humans, but well-informed humans that bring value, right? So there's
There we
no
go.
place
Nope.
for mediocrity with AI. You have
No.
to bring your A game, and you have to be prepared. AI is replacing all the low level, all the,
Yeah.
as I said,
The noise. Yeah.
mediocre. No one
Yeah.
wants to talk to someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. When you call someone up and say like an hour of your time to understand your needs, which is, why would I do that? But if you sort of said something along the lines of, hey, look, can you give me about 15 minutes? I want to share some insights what people like you are doing out there, how they're using my tool to do this. That's much more lean in, right? We talked about earlier, the mind sort of decides very, very quickly, is this something I can eat, or is something that's going to eat my time? Right? We talk about that. So the brain, you got that really quickly to say, hey, I'd like to share with you what others like you are doing, to handle this AI onslaught. That's in my example, right? So sorry, good question. Thanks, Sarah. All right, let me bounce through real quick. Number 3, this is a big one, is predictive objection handling, right? Everybody hits objectives and, oh my God, we don't have budget, or I'm not the decision maker. These are, and the key word is, these are common, right? So for salespeople, again, the human in the loop, to kind of really note if you get one and you struggle with it. I used to say, write them down. If you blew it, that's okay. Only true failure is an unlearned lesson. But let's you and I work on how you would answer that next time. Too, which is nice. And AI is fabulous for that. Anytime you get an objection, you're going to be either ready for it, too. So what are common concerns? Cost, complexity. So when I was selling manufacturing systems, which is a bit of my background, I would work out the fact that, okay, this is going to save you half a cent per label, but you do 8 million labels. You know what I mean? So, so the understanding of cost is important to them. Being able to say, say a year, here's how you're going to save your money. That was important. Things like that, right? Pre-structured responses. So objection handling, I'm going to go fast because we just got a couple more slides here. But, objection handling, it was always about, there's a method to it, a judo method, right? Which is feel, felt, found. So when somebody says, wow, my budget's really tight, you say, yes, I understand how you feel. You do have to acknowledge it. It's important, right? It's important to them. You say, and it's true, others felt the same way, but what they found is if they looked at their cost per label setting, they really made their accountants happy and they could save $80,000 a year. So that's what they found. So I know budget's important to you. You circle back, but do you think that would get us by the budget people?
We
You with
can,
me? So
by the way, we can, like, you don't have to rush through this. I feel this is very useful and we can dedicate the entire session for this. It's very, very helpful. And I like what you just said, feel, felt, found, like the
yeah,
problem, how
yeah,
they're feeling right now, and empathy, right? And
yeah,
then
yeah.
found the solution. I really like this. It's, yeah.
It's kind of standard practice in sales. You know what I mean? It's a fundamental, but it's one of those odd things that few people kind of prepare for. Or now they have this nice tool of practice again. You can even talk to someone. You can say, I want you to play the role of customer. You're going to hit me with this, and I'm going to come back. There's tools now to guide you in conversations like this. Here's what happens when this happens, right? I saw a cool tool the other day that's, on as I'm talking to you, we all have our little chat window on the side, right? It's listening to the conversation, and the customer mentions, for example, a competitor, like, well, right now we use IBM. It's surfacing on the right. Here's 3 questions you can ask them that aren't, hard questions, but they do lead to differentiators you have over IBM. You with me? So how important is security to you? Oh, well, very important. Oh, okay. Well, how do you feel about IBM's security breach they had last week? So, that's a little bit direct, and I probably wouldn't use something directly like that, but you get the idea. Is AI listening and helping reps in real time. But again, daily, we still have to kind of meet our quota every day. So that's why these particular 3 ways of using AI on a daily basis are are important. So I'm going to wrap up here real quick. AI powered research. You know what I mean? We used to say that there's in the course actually there's 5 areas. I got to think for a second. What's going on in their industry, what's going on with government regulatory in their industry, right? What are their competition doing? What are their customers? There's 5 kind of key questions you can ask on your AI research to get a really good picture of this industry and this person. So I'm coming close to finishing up here. I used to sell to construction safety executives, VPs and directors of construction safety. So that was one of my first use of AI was to say, what are the 5 daily challenges a construction safety executive faces? And then I challenged myself to say, how can I couldn't fix them all, but I knew I could kind of help with 2 and a half of one. So I went into that call prepared to say, hey, look, I know you probably face this challenge. Here's how I can help with that. Does that make sense?
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
totally, yep.
Yeah, okay. So and then conversation starters, everybody's awkward on the call. I've seen some horrible calls, too. And it's usually because they don't have a call plan. So this helps you AI properly if you're following a call plan. You're ready first to listen with understanding, and then of course the objections are just questions. They're not no's, they're just questions. So action items, again, we're going to talk about in the courses how to integrate AI in your next discovery call, and then we can explore Chat GPT. I think that's about it. Oh, this is my day connected here, too. So that, Sarah, is kind of, what I teach, young salespeople or if anybody's interested in kind of, okay, how do I not fall behind in AI right now? So
If anyone has a sales team and want to upskill them, I really think this is a very good opportunity here. Patrick is the go-to guy for sales, in my opinion. Like 30 years of experience, you'll not find this anywhere else. And I like that, you're integrating this into AI workflows and how to use that in like discovery calls and prep and all the things you mentioned. And everything you say, Patrick, there's a lot I was going to say. taking notes and I'm learning from.
Oh, we got the recording. You can run the recording through AI right now. So
Yeah,
summarize this recording for me. I use it all the time.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
definitely. That's
crazy. Yeah,
one big way.
yeah, yeah.
So should we like go to our questions, or you want to like reflect a bit on the slides, or what direction do you want to?
Oh, sure. We can go with the questions. Go ahead.
Okay.
I think we just killed the first one.
Okay. So how are top performing sales reps using AI tools today?
Uh, just showed you right there. So we probably move to the next question because
Okay.
I just
Yeah.
looked at the first question and did that right there.
Yeah.
They're doing that. They're preparing. Again, my goal always as a salesperson has been over 30 years is to how do I quickly build trust and rapport when I first meet them or when
Yeah.
on a call. We used to drive out to see them a lot, which is great on a call. How do I bring value at every interaction? Including that, especially that first, literally the first 5 seconds sometimes. Really glad to meet you. Looking forward to understanding your needs and perhaps sharing some of the things I'm hearing out there in our industry.
Yep. Yep. Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, the next question,
Mm.
and I think it's important because people get excited about AI tools, but maybe they over rely sometimes. So, what are the
Yeah.
risks or blind spots? Like, where would you be careful, right, when
Mm.
you're using AI for any of the tasks we discussed?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I've coached hundreds of salespeople, and there's a certain cadre of them, right, who are they're great. They're high energy. They take this and they do all their research and they prepare a mountain of information and they truly understand. And the biggest blind spot I wrote down is showing off. They're so excited on the call. They share everything they know about the company or the guy or the gal or whoever they're meeting with, right? Well, listen, I understand your business or this or that, or congratulations on here. I'm going to give you the 3 awards you just won, things like that, right? Yeah. Again, remember the whole purpose of a typically almost all moments that matter is can you get the microphone in the client's hands as quick as possible first, because they're joining for a reason. So I've always thought, be ready with all this stuff, but don't show off. So that's kind of a blind spot, if you will, that tendency to kind of want to just, as we used to say, show up and throw up. Remember that? So that's kind of one of the bigger disciplines I see a top sales rep too, the discipline that when they hear something that gets them excited, not to just talk over the client. So showing off.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned, and it's always important to remember that the call is about them, not about us. About yeah,
Yeah.
you did great work. Share it with your team, not with your like you're proud of
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
prep skills, okay? But that's not like the time or
Yeah.
place to show off your.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Use your knowledge to ask good questions. And think about, I used to sort of say to myself, okay, if I get one question on this call, what is it? It's usually along the line, what's on your mind? Okay, what's my second question going to be? What do you think of this new change in regulation that's happening? Like I'm helping a company right now that's reaching out to companies that want to sell internationally, right? Small businesses and stuff. So, anyways, yeah, no, that's biggest showing off. Use it to ask good questions.
Yep.
Use your knowledge to ask good questions.
Okay, how is AI changing the role of sales enablement content?
The keywords are enablement, because we were talking mostly to salespeople, but I do enablement. That's what my favorite thing. Um, so what it's changing is I wrote down customization, like we just talked about. So conversations are much more customized now, much more focused on what can you do to help me, right? Think about people coming up in the world. They're used to now to 1 minute, 3 minute videos clips. You know what I mean? I need you to know really quickly what how you think you can help. I need you to know, first off. Listening skills are very important, being able to kind of listen. But again, going back to enablement, making sure everybody's got the right message is the first one, right? Does everybody understand what my company's differentiators are? What our value we bring, making sure that the sales engineer, everybody's thinking the same thing and supporting the same thing. So that customization is there. Another one I wrote down is inline support, which is what we talked about a second ago, where as you're having a conversation, you're being assisted in enablement. To me, that's the pinnacle. I've seen some beautiful AI-based tools now that I go back and look at this treasure trove of gong calls because they're all stored, you stored all the history of calls. And by rep, they'll listen to the call and they'll kind of rank them in terms of how many questions do they ask? Do they talk too much? Things like that, just to kind of guide the sales reps. Like so, it'll come out that says Patrick needs a little help with objection handling. and when somebody says budget is objection, it's amazing that once you point AI at at these conversations. So I don't know, that's changing, and again, if you're taking it right, people say it's AI looking over my shoulder. No, it's AI trying to assist you, to take advantage of those moments that matter, like the discovery call or the proposal presentation. Cool. Yeah, that's enablement. Well, there's tons of stuff going on there. Wow, around sales enablement.
This question is something that ties to something you mentioned earlier. You mentioned that AI will not replace salespeople because sales requires human contact, but it will replace someone who is in sales but not using AI, and that 20 to 30% of people may actually lose their jobs. So how can like it's related because how can a small team like a startup or a small company use AI to punch above their weight or that sort of thing, like scale their sales effort
Mhm.
without hiring more people? Obviously, I for me personally, outside of this topic, I think they should hire people because I don't like what's happening with the AI. Like AI is good as a tool, but I don't want it to replace people. And yeah, but let's
Mhm.
see how people can do things they couldn't do before having AI. Yeah.
Yeah, and it may not be as much about hiring people as collaborating well with people. I'm seeing a lot more of that. Okay, you join my skills or my cadre of people, and we're going to work towards that. Right? I'm seeing more of that just because I'm doing some work with the media and film industry right now, which is highly collaborative. Right, writers move from project to project, and good directors. So what's nice about that, like this is a good example where it's coming back to the human. So AI now in the film industry can change everything with the generative its capabilities is now it's who do you know that are a good writer, who are the best writers, who are the best creatives. And that's the word, by the way, the humans should have in mind when they think about how am I going to combat my AI threat, is how can I be creative use of AI. So smaller teams are going to be, probably that's the way to go. I actually, my heart's in the entrepreneur, small business, SMB, right? My dad was a small businessman and stuff too. So for them not to forget what they have, and they have even more of now, is agility. Now a small two-person, three-person marketing team can take on what used to take 30 or 40 people. They're doing copy work and graphics. So a lot of these big elephants right now, you know, they're not looking to add more people, but collaborate with creatives, people that bring ideas and value to the table. I'd like to work with you in the construction industry because I've worked in the industry and I understand it really well. There's a lot more of that going on now that people are being hired for what they their value. They understand. Yeah. So I don't know. I think the small business, we talked about that, how the small teams, I think there's smallness as the agility that will allow them to compete now even more so with big companies, too. So I don't know, maybe it's a counter opinion to yours. We can argue about it.
It's okay. It's good to have different points of view. So, do you think there are specific tasks in sales that can be replaced totally by AI, or AI will always be support or empowering the salesperson?
Yeah, it depends on the value the salesperson brings. It's coming down to that. But the bottom end of that market, how do you answer a call and say, give them a price over the phone? That's going away real fast if it hasn't already, right? Too. So again, it really depends on how much value you bring to the business. And not only just value, start with that. Remember, you still got to work on the volume, the velocity of deals, and how you actually win the deal by closing it. Too. That's back to the human on that too. So automating any part right now, be careful, if you're just doing like SDRs, BDRs that are just qualifying and routing a call and setting an appointment for the sales rep. And that's particularly read up on Salesforce. They've kind of projected they're going to lose probably 30 to 50% of their sales force that do that now, take that first level calls because AI can do that. If you want an example, I'll do it verbally. Just check out the demo at air.ai. And that's a demo of that, first level sales support. What was interesting was this demo of an AI is it asked all the questions in the right sequence that we've been trying to train humans to do for a long time. So I'm listening to it after I hung up, I go, just my mind's blown because they did exactly what they should have done at the right time. On the call, they got an objection. They did the feel, felt, found thing a little bit too. And they had ready to go. Here's another way that we can make this happen, kind of thing, which worked for the person. But anyways, I'm saying that worry about that end of the business. Um, if I was a big company that had big clients, I think that you would worry about small agile, my favorite, the SMB. You worry about small agile industry value kind of solution specific vendors carving out parts of your business. So if you're IBM and you're running their infrastructure kind of thing, there's going to be lots of carve outs now around on that too. So, anyways, hopefully that answers your question a little bit. It's automating sales part. What I would do as a salesperson is what I'm doing here today. As a matter of fact, I'm using these tools myself right now, helping companies. Is I do really good research to identify individuals in roles, particularly starting at the highest role. I start literally at the CEO, and then there's a director usually, and then there's a manager, and then there's a user. So now you think about that if you're selling technology or almost anything you're selling, it's going to be those four levels: executive, director, manager. I'll say users, actually three levels, user. All right. So be prepared to have a conversation with each one of them. They may be on the call. And sometimes it's the same person. The CEO is also the CTO, right, on a small technology. But you should use AI to be ready, almost a matrix of what am I going to ask each one of those types of people, right? Because anyway, so
I think
I'm
it's,
on
yeah,
it.
I think you can also use AI to role play, like, hey, you are the CEO of this and that company, and I'm pitching you my, and like, this is right, like
Very
I'm,
much so.
yeah, something like that, and then you can have a conversation and see how you do, like,
Mm,
it can evaluate you, but obviously, like, yeah, I mean, it's a good, I like that, um
yeah.
making it act like someone, and then you're
Mm,
just, yeah. Okay, so do you think AI helps or hurts authenticity in B2B sales? I think the problem is people, like your customers, want
mm.
to feel and hear that you're using AI because this is the hype. They don't want to work with someone who doesn't sound like, hey, they're still doing things the old
Yeah.
way, right? But in the same time,
Yeah.
um, if you're using AI too much or in specific areas, maybe it may not reflect well on your work or your process. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on this?
You have to challenge yourself in any call, especially nowadays, is to say, what if this person I'm meeting can do this too? Right? AI is getting pretty generally available. I'm seeing more of that, where the person has done the AI stuff too. So challenge yourself to say, and the word that comes to mind, how can I connect the dots, right, between what my company has, my value proposition, and what I think their top five challenges might be. So I try that first. So I'm ready to talk about that, too. So again, remember their advantage here is somehow they've agreed to a meeting. They're human, they want to talk to a human. So that's good. Otherwise, if they use AI, you're kind of cooked until they're just about ready to buy. And then they call you up and they know more than you do if you're not doing this. You know what I mean? And then you're into a price war on
And
that. So yeah.
go ahead. Sorry. I don't want to
No,
cut you off.
please. Questions.
I mean, and what ways it can hurt, using AI can hurt your authenticity when meeting with a client? Like, what is one thing you wouldn't do or say,
Yeah.
yeah, that would not reflect well?
One thing I wouldn't do again, it comes back to showing off. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it can be creepy. You gotta be careful with that, right? The wrong type of person. So, my first thought of authenticity is to be authentic, really, is be yourself. It's important, right? But I think, I start with a calm neutral, but behind me, or I used to say under my elbow, behind me, I've got all this knowledge I've gained very, very quickly, very efficiently, right? So velocity of deals can go faster because I'm going into that discovery call ready for it, right? Now I'll have my agenda and it really heavily involves their agenda and what they want to talk about. But at the same time, I'm going to get my information out of that call, and that's kind of an efficiency, effective thing. That good salespeople are. They're always looking how can I be more efficient on my call agenda? So good. How can I be more effective? Can I get the information I need to decide whether to move this deal forward or how to move it forward too? So yeah, I mean that's authenticity is about trust, and yeah, for me, my style is a little bit I've learned over the years because I'm kind of an excitable type, right? Is learn that is it's not about me, it's about them. I'm seeing this in the industry, a real push in sales training, not so much now for kind of objection handling, because we saw you can handle that, but it's teaching salespeople the soft skills of active listening and empathy You know what I mean? And you know, and so it's interesting how now that's one of the biggest shifts I've seen in sales training and enablement is people want, okay, you know, on tap now we have technical knowledge. It's how good are you at listening, if I was to summarize it too. So yeah, I don't think that's gonna go away. Right. So that's if you want to go back to how can you protect yourself in sales, your role
I
and
think also if a salesperson becomes too reliant on AI tools, like for example, if you ask AI to create a report for you on like market trends or something, would you spot check it quickly just to make sure the numbers like are accurate? Because sometimes, you know, it does hallucinate sometimes. So
yeah. Yeah,
if
it
you
does. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and if I present something to the client that's not accurate, it
Mhm.
can be like it's not good.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I've been selling technology for 30 years, right? There was a saying, how do you tell the difference between a car salesman and a technology salesperson? A car salesperson knows they're lying. So technology present. So, you know, and how do so in other words, we're just saying, how do you, you know, risk lying to the customer or doing that? You know what, that's always there. And it comes back to kind of being prepared for it. And if you have an insight like that, hey, you know, 30% of automobiles, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, it took me like 2 seconds to get it, but it's very funny, like the car salesman, because the tech guy doesn't like, it's just too lazy to double check. They think, okay,
Car salesman knows he's lying. That's right. Yeah. Sorry, you know, so it's the same sort of thing. So when I'm presenting research like that, I do try and couch it. And, you know, first off, I'm trying to, if I can, not be uncertain. I'll actually use AI to research. How certain are you? Because I've had AI come back and say, "Oh no, you're right. That's wrong. I'm wrong." You know, too. But again, that's where you, the human, come in. And you remember we say AI. People, that's one of the common things I'm hearing is AI. You have to be a filter for it. And that's all. I'll use that card there. Well, you know, if it doesn't sound right to you, don't use it or do some more research on it, right? On that. But again, that's authenticity. That's trying to, you know, not lie to them, trying to do what's best for them, which is a great instinct for salespeople. You know, it's the basic instinct is curiosity. How do you make your money here? You know, just asking your customer, how do you do business here and why? Because some cases may be a charitable organization. It's not about money. It's about why they do what they do. You know, so I come back to that word authenticity. It's a great word. It's a lot easier to be authentic. You know what I mean? You don't have to remember on that. So I think that's the first thing. It's almost the table stakes in sales. You know, the top salespeople I know are just the most authentic people. Yeah, you know, that way they don't.
I feel because, okay, one of the things we mentioned is about being a good salesperson is making better connections with people. And I
Yes.
think if you're authentic, that's more likely for people to connect with you because you're being real. If
Yeah.
you're being
Yeah.
fake or like, as you
Yeah.
said, showing off or that sort of thing, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
And the two things you mentioned, like making better connections with people and bringing value to everything you do.
Yeah.
And I think these are skills that are gonna carry over whatever happens in technology. Uh, the soft skills will still matter, and you're driving the AI, right? That's what
Yeah.
I'm just trying to summarize what we're saying and what I've learned so far
Yeah.
in the session.
Excellent. You're picking up what I'm laying down. It's great.
See, I'm a good student. Okay, I'll get sales someday. I'm gonna be a good salesperson.
Oh, you're a great salesperson. You're authentic. That's the start.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you and
but
you and you want to help people. That's the second one. And the
okay.
third
If
one
I'm
is
on your team, you're on your sales team, you're not gonna put me in a client facing because I'm not that good in talking to people. That's the problem.
you're more of an engineer, sales engineer, and those are my wingmen. I've always had very good sales engineer help, right?
Yeah.
And too. So my thought was, if you were I want to call, it'd be part of my role would be to prepare you with here's what I know about the client, right? And I'd like you to do the exact same thing we just talked about. Do your research, but do it from a technical point of view, right?
Yeah.
And this is a lot easier to do. But one of the things I used to ask, and I'd always get from our best sales engineers, right, the technical people, is a business case that's kind of like theirs, where they used our product to look like a hero, you know, and how. And sales engineers were great. You know, they used the X9000 to lower costs and shape the traffic, and that reduced their spend $1 million a year. And sales engineers like you would know those stories, right? Of why, right? And too. So an AI can help with that. So anybody involved in sales, there's another course we're looking at for sales engineers to say how can you do this to come ready for a call.
you describe this? A wingman. Like, yes, I would be on a call with you. Like, I would prefer to be a wingman. Like, I would answer technical areas, but not like run the entire sales call. I don't think that's for me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Wing person, a wing person,
yes,
a
a
wing
wing
person.
person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, if you had to automate one part of your sales funnel with AI, what would it be? I mean, we probably touched on that, but
Yeah.
yeah, let's.
I'm doing it now. I loaded another program today, and I won't mention any brands or anything like that too. But as I'm doing my research, looking for my ideal client profile and who are the contacts that I need to talk to, I look for a specific title. It's not this case, but construction safety executives. If I'm sitting there connecting with them, I've got a tool now that just instantly sucks any information I've got on my screen about this particular person that I feel, a human, that I want to have this conversation with. I'm able to push the button quite quickly and suck them into my CRM. All right, so I'm able to quickly capture from multiple sources a person that and when not only just capturing, I'm using an agentic AI, agentic AI
Okay.
to do that, but not only just put them into CRM, but classify them. Here's what here's what campaigns I want to run on them. You know what I mean? This sales cadence, or there's people that are influencers. Here's someone I just want to follow. If I follow this person, I'll become quickly be an expert on that industry, and I'll use them as my resources in using AI when I'm saying, tell me about this new laser etching technology that's taking the manufacturing industry by storm, right? Things like that, right? So does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question related to this a bit. But it's not just related to sales. It's in general. Like, if AI is going to replace beginner level of work, like basic work, right?
Mhm.
People are gonna be interested in hiring just more advanced people. Like, no one is gonna be interested in hiring juniors or fresh people, like, fresh out of college. But then over time, you need people to start somewhere to develop those skills to be, you know what I mean? Like, do you think AI is going to cause a skills gap in sales if people are just full?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm explaining it correctly. I mean,
I
you
think
need,
that the lower bar has been raised. If
yes,
you're in the bottom, well, so think about sales. It's a
yeah,
business, right? Want a friend, get a dog. This is business.
yeah,
Sales is a numbers business, and
yeah,
ultimately it's, I used to like to think how quickly can you onboard them, get them up in production. But there's, I've always seen when times get tough, the bottom third are at risk, right, of sales
yeah.
in terms of production against their number, their nut. There's always that KPI, right? So, lots of other things go into that, and length of service and what's going on in the industry and stuff too. But, and again, it's business and it's sales. It's generally wrapped and tied to a number or numbers, right?
Yeah.
Then after numbers, I also seen, which I think is great, the best companies have, the KPIs and, whenever you hit your quota too, but also client satisfaction. That's just becoming more and more kind of a KPI, which is great, right? Yeah. So that's that's changing. So yeah, the bottom third. Again, learn to use it. I think there's probably a 1 to hopefully 5 year adoption gap. Think about how long, if you go back in my time, it took about maybe 2 to 4 years for the internet. People going, what is it? How do we use it, right? And so this is 10 times that. And two, so it may take, I'll say, a year or two. You got a window when you can make a name for yourself as using these tools, right? To build, because that's going to be the human role. A human's going to want to talk to a human somewhere along the line, right? Even you're calling a robo help desk like that demo I talked about earlier. It may come to a point when other they got, there's a communication issue, an accent issue, where they'll say, I want to talk to a human. So there may be an expansion of that, too, but
Considering
even that's going to
starting
be.
a newsletter, Patrick, on all sales stuff, including AI, and I think it would be useful. I'm not pushing, of course. I'm just suggesting. From what I'm hearing, I feel it would be very useful. And if you ever think about this, let me know. I'm happy to hype it on LinkedIn and share it with everyone.
I'll,
Yeah,
I'll, I'll count on you for my SEO. That's it. I got the
yeah.
best SEO in town.
Yes, I like I like being a wing person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works for me. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's a great combination. And then it's going to be very important because salespeople, as you move your game up and you use it, you'll be getting bigger meetings, better clients, you know what I mean? Because you'll be targeting who you want to talk to, better calls. You'll get better at these four values, that we have on the screen. right? These sorts of things. But think anything I'm doing, how's it going to help me with one of these? A lot of the, I think right now a challenge in the industry is people work from the bottom up here. Victory, what counts as KPIs, your numbers. You make your number, you don't, kind of thing. That's victory. And it's important. You got to win, right? Ultimately. But there's not as much focus and there's more training now. How can you do deals faster? Because there's better enablement. I'm seeing a beautiful expansion of sales operations to help people do deals faster. There's a lot of people helping you once you get a PO, get that deal done or do that. Volume is going to be a thing because it is going to be easier with AI and sales
Yeah.
cadences. I've done a course on sales cadences, and you're going to be able to take a really good outreach program that works well, in your target audience, and be able to send it out to 500 people that are ideal clients for you, right? So, but at the root of all, and is often forgotten, is what value are you bringing to that call or to that email or to that touch with the client, right?
I think because AI is enabling everyone to do the volume part, you'll also have a challenge is going to be how to stand out in this sea of, everyone is
Yeah.
doing. Yeah.
How to get your balloon higher, I heard somebody say.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah,
again, it goes back to what you said, make better
mhm,
connections with people,
yeah.
bring value to everything
Yeah.
you do. So it's feel, felt, found. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just one. That's objection handling. But I think in that first 5 seconds of the call, when they first get on, that's a moment that matters. We talked about, and that's being able to say, hey, I was, talking to somebody in your industry the other day, and they're using this to do this, and they've reduced their cost by 40%. That's psychology of that person in their mind right now. Their brain is deciding, is this something I can eat? They lean in, tell me more. Or is this kind of, oh, I'd like to talk to you about, salesperson say, I'd like to talk to you about your needs, and that's all, why would I do it? This is eating my time. This is leaning out. And the brain, once it starts going that way, it's gone. So, and this type of research we talked about today in discovery is all about getting ready for that first moment where, first time, it's okay to say, what's on your mind? If you really think about it, ideal sales calls. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for joining me on the call today. You joined me for a reason. What's on your mind? That's the simplest sales call, but being able to say, hey, look, I've done some research. I'm interested in your industry, but please, today you've joined me for a reason. On your email, you said you wanted to talk about this. Go ahead, or, yeah, please tell me what's on your mind. How do you think we can help? But very, very quickly, the mic's got to be to them, and everything else we're doing today and talking about is in support of good questions to keep that conversation going, right?
It's about
And
them.
leading,
Yeah.
yeah, about them. And again, I'm remembering my mentor, Mark Stewart. He's great. This has got to lead to something, and usually it's questions that highlight your differentiators, or triggers, for them too. Have you hit this yet? Has this
Good
regulation
questions, right?
yeah, having good questions, right? So that's where bringing it back to the topic at hand is, that's where AI, if used properly with the right prompt recipes, and that's what we teach in the course. Here's a good recipe, and the result is the outcome is a meeting agenda and notes, and here's what you can add.
Recipes. I have Martha Stewart cookbook here. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, no. I burned the water boiling an egg, but my wife is a chef, so I'm very, very lucky. I clean. She cooks, I clean. It's a great relationship. Yeah.
That's a good, yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Um,
Too. Excellent
I think,
questions.
yeah, I don't have more questions around the topic, but I mean, is there anything else you want to discuss or, um,
Um, no, just I'll bring up really quickly. If is become an expert in your industry, become an expert for the person the persona that you want to talk to. And you can get excited. That knowledge brings confidence on the call. Too. You really notice your calls get better when you have an agenda. Too. Sometimes and they go in your direction. And the big thing is think. I always vision. I'm hanging up from that discovery call, for example, or from that progress meeting. What just happened? Or what do I have? And that's where you sort of say, okay, I need to ask them about time frame, or I need to ask them about budget. I need to ask, I have everything I need to advance the call, right? And to the next stage or not. And again, sometimes time saved is time earned too, right? Because volume and velocity are important. If you're doing good qualifying, you realize this is not a good deal. I can't help them, too, but you don't get caught up in that too. So, an efficient and effective use of your time is the goal of all this.
nice.
I'm off my soapbox now. Anyways, and then again, top salespeople, this is just rote to them. They're very much, how can I help? They consider themselves almost doctors. What's the problem? How's it affecting you? What do you think we should? That's another big one. What do you think we should do? Because they've thought about this. That's another mistake salespeople make. As soon as they hear the first problem, I was told you about when I was mystery shopping, I was pretending to be a CRM buyer. And, on all those calls, every time I would say, yeah, I'm looking for CRM for forecasting, and I was going to buy four other things. As soon as I said forecasting, the salesperson made the mistake of taking over the call, and the next 20 minutes spent telling me what they could do with forecasting when it was one of my needs, but one of four. So better questioning and agenda. So with that sort of stuff in AI, I think Sarah is amazing. It's a fun time to be a rep because I really think I'm a positive person. I think you still have a window of a year or two, especially in some of the industries that aren't tech related, to just smoke your competition. In this thing, if you become good at it, right? All around. And matter of fact, one of the questions you ask is, what are the strengths and weaknesses of my competition? You know?
So last week there was a Google event, and there's a lot of AI changes coming to search, and there's a lot of gloom. That's the right word to use on my
Yeah.
timeline. It's a lot of
Cool.
negativity. So I love that you have this positive attitude. We need to look at things in a positive way because
Yeah.
it's not either or. It's not us or against AI. It's us and AI. And
Yeah.
yeah, definitely things are changing, but we just need to adapt, right? This
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
the industrialization or whatever. This is the AI agentic change to
Yeah.
the world. Yeah.
But there's a favorite saying, it's a cautious business environment, right? People are sitting back a bit. That's what I'm hearing and stuff too. But again, part of my 30 years, I've been through three or four of these, right? COVID, the financial crisis, the subprime. Um, and there's a tightening for sure, and it's fearsome too. But at the same time, there's after always this, there's this. There's been, so if we're able to catch one of these, and I'm seeing opportunity in AI, in areas that I love. So it might be another thing is sales. Not don't just sell, make sales part of something you love, right? They're doing that and make,
I
so
mean,
instead
a
of
good example of what you just said, the curves and the uh, like recently Nvidia stock dropped and people started to panic and oh my God, and and then now it's recovering and things are back to normal, and that's how life is. It's never going to be a straight line. Yeah.
there might be a few more cuts, too. But at the same time, I think back on, when I should have bought Uber stock or I should have bought
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
Microsoft stock, things like that. I'm thinking now, okay, what are the next companies coming up that are good at this, right? And I won't mention companies competitive wise, but I can think of three or four companies that go, wow, they're going to go places because they're specializing. They
Yeah.
know their industry, they know what they do it very well, and they're using AI. To be honest with you, it's so anyway. I see more opportunity. I am a big fan of Winston Churchill, and one of my favorite sayings of his is, "I find myself an optimist because anything else is pointless. What's the use of running
Right.
around with your hair
Right.
on fire, right?"
That's a good mindset. Like, what's the point of being pessimistic, right?
Yeah, it's good. You don't want to be happy, stupid, or anything like that. You got to consider the ups and downs on it too. But in general, okay, we got to get through this. We
I
will,
have a
right?
tendency of approaching every project with, okay, what can go wrong and how to avoid it,
Mm.
which is too much. Like it comes up too much. Like if I'm meeting with a client, I'm like, okay, what are the things that can go wrong on this call, and how do I prepare for these all wrong things? And it's weird. It's helpful, I have to say, but it's
Yeah,
also we need to focus on the
but
positive things as well
just
equally.
out of proportion, perhaps. But
Yeah,
I used to say, not too much time looking in the rearview mirror, not too much time looking ahead. Enjoy the moment. And trust
yeah,
in your experience. And once you kind of trust in your experience and you're prepared, you've got an agenda. I find you can sit back and relax a little bit more. Please, give your approach calls with more confidence, right? And the challenge for yourself though is when they give you that first feeding of how you can help them. Well, Sarah, I'd like to increase my SEO numbers, right? And and most salespeople are, especially technical people, if they're talking are inclined to off they go, right? On that topic. Versus, especially if the client says, I really need something obvious that you can help with, and you're very good. I used to coach clients. Okay, what's the next level? Well, first off, don't panic and tell them everything you do on that. You got to sit back and say, oh, yes, others I talked to and got the same challenge. Now, please tell me, Sarah, how is that impacting you? Which is beautiful, right? You're into the backfield there of needs, and they're saying, "Oh, this is costing us 100 grand a month," kind of thing, and it's horrible. And you're just because you know you can, it's a softball, you can hit it out of the ballpark, right? So
Yeah.
why waste that time? Hmm?
If I'm optimistic, hopefully I can do a good job.
Yeah, well, it's a good start. Right? You start with how can I help? If I had that, the simplest question, how do you think we can help, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty straightforward stuff, and it comes from the heart. So back again, it's authentic. And back again to the overall goal, I would trust someone that I judge to be authentic. And then the other thing, remember, psychological about the brain leaning in is there's another theory that if you give somebody something, an insight or a learning, or others like you are doing this, it's called reciprocity, where they psychologically feel they owe you something back. And at the right time, you can cash in that coupon with, hey, can I
Well,
ask you a
something
question?
happened in the social contract in 2020, 2024, 20. I don't see it anymore. Like you're nice to people and expect it to be like the same, but it's not. I don't know what
You're trying to
happened.
help. You're trying to help. They've reached out. You're trying to help. That's
Yeah.
the philosophy, and thank you for reaching out. And again, that's we're talking about our audience as marketers too today, Sarah, and that's recognize that you've built a relationship and you've done a good job. Obviously, that's where sales takes over, where a human talks to a human.
Yeah.
That's where you and I interact. You're my you feed me with leads that are qualified and from the right source with as much information as you can, right, about them. They've answered a little questionnaire perhaps that marketing has come up with, right?
How did you find us and that sort of thing? Yeah.
Yeah, that
Okay.
sort of stuff. But I mean, my favorite, I used to put in my, anytime I had a chance was to say, what did you want to talk about in the comments? And not everybody would fill it out, but some people would. So that even helped me prepare even more. It was great. Quite common. What were you hoping to understand, or how can we help today? How can we help on the call? What can we prepare for? Very common question I don't see enough in contact sheets. What's on your mind? Yeah, some people will fill it out in great detail. And right away, that does two things. You got great research to do. And it also tells you on the call that that's an analytical person. So be prepared. They're going to not only want answers to what you've given them, but they'll have more questions. So you better have Sarah on the call with you, your
It's
technical
good to,
person.
yeah, to listen to the way they ask to meet, because that's a good point too, because we try to figure out what type of person, like the way they ask for what they want can give
Mhm.
a bit of what type of person they are. Right. Right.
Very
Right.
much so. Yeah. 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 There's a story of my wife reaching out to a large retailer in the US. Would you like to talk about environmentally compostable packaging? I've got some insights. That's what she does. And she got back, the reply to the email was all in caps. Yes, please set up a call for us to talk as soon as possible.
Wow.
All in caps, right? So oh, this is great, right? So she said, well, how do I handle that call? And I said, well, you know what? I tell her what I said wow, if you take back your answer, came back all in caps. That to me is shouting in my head. Please, here's the mic. Tell me what's up. What's on your mind? In regards to compostable packaging, right? So it's a funny way to do it, but there's always little clues, like you say, depending how they get back to you, how quickly sometimes. That's why I'll finish up with a little bit. One of my favorite moments that matter is when you've got a meeting, they've agreed to a meeting, and you're sending the Outlook meeting. And we talked about that in one of our courses. That spend some time on that, make it a different color, put a 1 hour and a 1 day reminder. There's all kinds of things you can do in a moment that matters, right? And so that when they accept that invite, you have the highest chance of them joining. Or I used to attach a summary of what we're going to talk about in case they want to forward it to others, which happens a lot, right? So you get back a reply, and you'd also get back 5 other people that are going to join the call, right? Too. So there's lots of uses of AI. So here's and I'll wrap up with my little tip. When you get back the email and they've added 2 other people, they've added Sonia and Bob. The first thing I do is now is use AI is okay, who's Sonia and Bob? And I get
Okay, that's a
AI.
good point. Yeah. Okay.
I get
Yeah.
I look them both up. Oh, I see Sonia as a CFO. I better be prepared for that call with a little bit of our financial justification. Or what questions am I going to guess that Sonia is going to ask, right? Because she's CFO. Stuff like that, right? So the AI ideally, and you're always curiosity. And if you're looking for common, they talk about all this is the human, right? So that's a good thing now. Okay, well, I'll focus on the human. Yeah.
Just a random thought. I'm sorry, it's just something
I
random
love your
that popped up.
thoughts.
Um, it's very interesting how sales skills are very good for interview skills as well.
Oh,
Being
yes. Yeah.
prepared, right? Like yeah, they carry over to that area as well.
Yeah. One of my favorite jobs here way back is you can just see the corner of it there. It was recruiting, and it was beautiful. Oddly enough, the short story is I was in sales for 25 years, and I find I didn't like firing salespeople. That was part of the job I didn't like. So for 3 years, I became a recruiter, and which is great. So I learned how to really interview well and and understand what my candidates needed and wanted, and and became a recruiter. So I used that. When I got back into sales again 15 years ago, kind of thing, to since then hire top-notch salespeople, right? So as you say, it's interviewing is the exact same thing as sales. And I used to say to my candidates, "Hey, describe the ideal job for me." That was my super secret interview question when I met with a new salesperson or somebody looking for a job or that's replied to an ad is, "Hey, describe the ideal job for me." You know what I mean? And they would describe what they're looking for. And I knew whether or not that was a good match to the job, right? Because for example, they would tell me, um, I'm leaving my last job because I got a newborn and I'm traveling 75% of the time. You know, they would say that, which is great, right? It's very valid, right? My wife's going to leave me if I if I don't quit my. So and I happen to know my job is 50% travel. I'd have to say to them, here's the job, but it's not a good fit. Things like that. But it started with, what are you looking for? Same as sales. You're very right. They're exactly, the similarities are incredible. Recruiting is harder because the product you're selling is not fixed. The product you're selling is a person, and they have legs and they can walk away. So I would say recruiting is twice as hard as sales because you got both sides, right? On that.
Yes, I like how everything connects in a way, sales, recruitment, marketing. Some skills
Yeah.
are just transferable, right?
Yeah, they are. And that's why hiring is so important. You're going to spend a lot of time as a manager with someone to develop them and all that stuff. You have to get that right. It used to break my heart when we'd have what we call fall offs, as people that were, like 6 months in, either one of you decided it wasn't right. You know, that's a failure in recruiting. Yeah,
So
anyways.
much, Patrick. This has been very informative. I really like our discussions. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone who is watching this, and see you next month with a new topic. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks, Sarah.